Hello and welcome. I'm Danette Kubanda, and joining me today for a very special interview is Tania Anderson. She is an international flight attendant who has experienced cultures from 79 countries. At times, she's had a front row seat to unexpected historical events as they unfolded. She's the author of On Butterflies' Wings, an anthology of international escapades. Thank you so much for being with us today, Tania.
Thanks for your time, Danette. I appreciate it.
So, Tania, describe what it was like when you brought home the 82nd Airborne back to America from the first Gulf War.
Well, at the time I was flying for Pan Am, and they had a craft agreement with the military, which means a civilian reserve air fleet, that in the event of a national emergency, that we turned some or all of our 747s over to the military. So we took the military in not long after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, but this story is about bringing them back out. So April 1st, 1991 is a day I'll never forget. And as the soldiers boarded, it was the 82nd Airborne, the All-Americans, the AA on the patch on their arm. As they boarded, I'd say, "Welcome to the USA," because even though we were still in a Saudi air base, I felt like we're in America, you know? And so we would take off from Dhahran on the east coast of Saudi Arabia, we'd refuel in Rome, and then we'd go on to New York. So when I got on board the aircraft, I said, "Gentlemen, are you ready to go home?" And they said, "Yes, ma'am." And they were so exuberant. I thought their energy was going to go blasting through the roof of the airplane into the stratosphere. It was so amazing. I said, "Where's your CO?" And he's right over there, ma'am. So I went to talk to the CO, Colonel, I can't recall his surname, and the chaplain to coordinate meal times and announcements, and particularly prayers of gratitude that the chaplain wanted to say. About halfway across the Atlantic, I had an idea because I had bonded with them so readily. It was just such an amazing experience. So I went to the colonel and I said, "Colonel, my crew's going to get off in New York, but what would you say if I flew off the clock and went down with you guys to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, because I just have to see you reunited with your loved ones?" And he was already nodding yes. He's all on board. So we flew down to North Carolina. We did a low flyby, like we buzzed the crowd, which is pretty dramatic stuff. All my soldiers, they're all paratroopers, are looking out with their eyes narrowed to see how large the crowd was. We landed. They got off into formation. I had some yellow roses and yellow banners that I bought. Well, we bought in Rome. The crew paid for it. And I'm walking across the tarmac, and the PA is booming. "We'd like to thank Pan Am for bringing him home safely." And I started to cry. No, I got to suck it up a little bit. And I found the colonel's wife. I asked where she was sitting. I gave her the yellow roses. And then this elderly lady clutched my arm and she said, "I just had triple heart bypass surgery, and I didn't think I'd live long enough to see. I was afraid that either I would die or my grandson would be killed in action, and I never see him. And now, thanks to Pan Am, he's home safely." And I just started crying. I said, "It doesn't even matter if I'm crying now. Nobody cares. Everybody's crying." So that was a very memorable day.
Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. How did that story tie into the film What Women Want with Mel Gibson?
Well, years later and thousands of miles away in Hollywood, I was a background extra in the popular film Mel Gibson had, What Women Want. And it's a sappy, he's watching a sappy film, okay? And he's completely surrounded by women. And he's just like, you know? And so they wanted all of us to be crying. And so, as you know, when you can't cry, a production comes around with a little bit of peppermint and they blow it in your eyes, and you're fighting back tears, you know? So, but for me, all I had to do was remember, you know, that day that I brought the 82nd Airborne back from Saudi Arabia, and voila, no problem.
Oh my goodness. And how did these experiences come full circle for you so many years later?
Well, actually, exactly 3 years ago this week, we were in Germany and we were waiting for one of our 747s to come up from the Middle East, but I didn't know who the passengers were going to be, right? So they arrived. I went down the aisle and I see the AA on the patch, you know, and I said, "Are all of you guys 82nd?" They're like, "Yes, ma'am." And I thought, oh, Dana, I can't wait to tell them about bringing the 82nd out of the first Gulf War. So, we take off, we're coming back to the States, and this young man comes to the galley, and he starts telling me about how frenetic it was, because they were guarding Kabul airport, but they were taking turns with the Marines. And of course, as we've all heard, the Marines were up, and 13 of them got killed by a suicide bomber. And he was talking about how grateful he was that he's safe with his regiment. And also the photograph, the well-known photograph, The Last Man Out of Afghanistan, and it's very fuzzy. That was their CO. That's Brigadier Major General Chris Donahue, and he was boarding a Globemaster, a C-17, to go back to the States. So so this young paratrooper, he was fiddling with his crucifix underneath his Army T-shirt, and he said, "Tanya, why did my first trip out of the United States be to Kabul? Why couldn't it have been to Rome?" And I said, "Honey," I said, "thank you for your service, and here I'm betting that one day you'll get to Rome."
Oh, I bet he will. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of these stories. To learn
Thank you.
more about Tanya, her book, and all of her projects, please visit her website at taniaanderson.vip. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danette.